Welcome back to the weekly report. Later in the week than I usually do, but I definitely wanted to get this out so we could talk about what's been going on with company earnings, especially what's been going on with Tesla, which I made a killing on. Hey, it's nice to see. We haven't had as many wins, but we've had lots of big, small wins week over week. It's like every week there's like this one big win that pretty much carries the week. And I'm fine with that, especially in a market environment that just seems range bound, just keeps chopping up and down. So let's talk about what happened with Tesla, what I think about the future of the company, and then kind of go over the technical analysis as well. Definitely touching on Bitcoin. So no matter what social media you've been following me on, I have been talking about Tesla a ton and how I wanted to be short into their earnings. And let's also just take a moment before we go over this chart and just talk about what's going on with Tesla and their earnings. Now, we've seen news heading up into this earnings report, and I've been retweeting it a ton saying, hey, this is great long term, but not good short term. Be aware this earnings is likely not to be good because we've been seeing them bring down the price of their vehicles. And long term, this is fantastic. You know, if you're on a 5-10 year scale, you start to realize that, wow, the rate at which they can drop the price of their vehicles, literally no other manufacturer can compete with that due to the infrastructure that Elon has built up with the gigafactories, etc. It's just nearly impossible to compete with. And electric vehicles will get so cheap at a certain point that they will be the dominant vehicle. On top of that, if Tesla then starts to produce their self-driving, which right now looks like it'll roll out in the same way that we saw with AI. And I've heard some people like Raoul Pal talk about this, and I could not agree more, where it's like you hear about it, there's nothing, and then one day it's everywhere. One day, within 2 weeks, ChatGPT was the number one application. Now, it won't be that extreme because you still have to buy the vehicles, people still have the money, and they have to have a point in their life where they're actually going to switch vehicles. But I think it could be that type of fast trigger, probably replace a lot of businesses as well. Think about, different taxis, or people probably use this over Uber, even if there's just these automated taxis that come pick you up. I think it could come a lot faster than we think, just like ChatGPT 3 and ChatGPT 4 were so much better than anyone had predicted at such a faster rate than anyone had predicted, especially Google. So when we're actually talking about that in the short term, though, what this means is that the company's just straight up making less money. And since everyone's just buying less vehicles in general, we've seen some slowdown, especially as people become more worried about a recession. And, recessions, if you're learning finance from a classical institution, if you're in college or you're studying for one of your series exams, the most classic example of recession is that industrials do poorly, or automotive does poorly. Sorry, I almost misspoke there. Automotive industry historically does poorly into recessions, and I think that Tesla is no exception to this, especially since that self-driving isn't the staple right now. It isn't out right now. Okay, this stack has that priced in, and it simply does not exist. There's definitely a premium built into here. So even though I am bullish on the company, I need to be cognizant of how this will affect the short term to make sure that we get the timing right? And of course, there'll be some people who say you can't time markets, and I call that loser's bias. So let's go ahead and zoom in here on the technical analysis. This line could be drawn a little bit better, but we could see that we had this downtrend developing. We did get the break as well, coming in at the end of this week. So a little bit of a bounce. Maybe it will come back up over this range and test that again for another downside move. And the big thing I want to be watching here is what goes on with this volume. All the volume here around this fourth wave bounce, that's a really great indication of the bottoms there, the chops in. And so we'll be looking for another volume spike of some sort, maybe a cluster like this. That will be a good indication that there has been a wave completion actually occurring. I'm not sure if I'm following. This is actually lower than I think. I'm anticipating something more like a double bottom here. But we'll see how this actually turns out, especially looking at where this RSI already is. The TTM squeeze has quite a bit of room left to move on the daily. So we'll see how this actually plays out. I am right now under the impression that this stock is already starting to price in a good amount of the bad news that we've gotten. I think the sell-off from the earnings, if we're going to get a ton more than this, I think we would have had a more severe reaction from the earnings. I think a lot of the news has been processed, so maybe this starts to actually correlate with SPY more than we've actually seen it. Tesla's very alpha stock, and I don't mean alpha as in like a lion. I mean alpha as in like not a high correlation with the indexes. So we'll keep an eye on this. We might see us bounce out of this, retest it, and break through. I think I said that. And the other one that we've been short on is Coinbase. Coinbase has been excellent to short. Of course, this plays into the thesis with Bitcoin, which pretty much nailed this one. And, I was uncertain, by the way, on this because I was looking at this third wave and I was saying, well, we hit 31,000. That's about when I want to start selling. I was thinking I'll go ahead and tell everyone I sold, even though I think it'd go a little bit higher. Again, for me personally, though, I'm never actually trying to perfectly time tops and bottoms. I'm trying to get them relatively close. I think the game of trying to get your timing of the market that precise is just that's when you're playing a losing game, right? When I'm like, this is relatively close enough, I'll go ahead and take profits or out of the positions, and sometimes it keeps going, sometimes it extends further than I ever anticipated, and I did sell like way too early. Just what it is. You just gotta keep moving forward, otherwise you're just gonna destroy your mental. But that ended up being a perfect top. Shouldn't always expect that, but it's awesome when it happens. We've seen a pullback here. I'm still looking to see this hit that 24,000 level, probably about below 25. I'll be a buyer, and then between 24, I'll really start loading up. Again, looking for this fifth wave where we could see 38, 40K. That's what we're looking for. But during this time period, the best way to profit off that, because I don't like shorting Bitcoin outright, is Coinbase, in my opinion. I think this company could also do some major changes to where their location's going to be in Europe, especially with the types of news we've been getting from the SEC. The new chief, Gary Gensler, is pretty awful, actually. I thought I'd like him more than I have. I've found him to be pretty annoying. And also, this is probably the best time to also take just a moment and just pivot, because lots of people have been asking me about the Federal Reserve rolling out their own digital currency. And a lot of you aren't super saturated in the world of crypto, so you might have missed the sentiment that has been generated from the people who are, highly into that culture. And some coders in Ethereum have even just found the new CBDC to be just laughable, a joke. It is actually terrible. And if they were wanting to make a digital currency that would actually be competitive with the rest of the crypto market, they have completely and utterly failed at that. This is not efficient. It's not a good substitute for the other, cryptocurrencies that exist. And some of these are trash. They fail. And I mean, how to take that depends on what you want it to occur, right? Some people believe in modern monetary theory. They want a centralized governance over the monetary system, and they would like to see something like the new Fed's digital currency succeed. However, there are lots of people who don't like that for reasons like Canada shutting off everyone's payments if they didn't, if they were part of the freedom rallies with the truckers. And some people might think that was a good thing because of it leaned in their political direction during that time period. But trust me, it doesn't always do that. So I think there's a very good reason for this not to succeed. And so it's kind of nice to see that it sucks. Although it's still sad on that aspect, though, because it shows you the people in power here are continuing to try and uphold these dead regimes. And I think in a political environment on a global level where we have lots of nefarious entities who would like to outcompete us, it's probably not good that we are still trying to lean on systems that are already becoming a part of the past. I think it's important that we take risks, innovate, and try to stay on top, because then we can continue to kind of set the guidelines for what is moral or not moral. We don't want someone like China setting the the standard for what's okay or not okay. And that's my thoughts on that. So if we're looking at Coinbase right now, you're pretty much looking for this break of 58.30. I've already been shorting this, keeping in line with Bitcoin, looking for further lows here. See the TTM squeeze also rolling over on the daily. Good. All confirmations. This is a lot choppier for Coinbase though, so I'm being a little bit cautious, staying a little light right here. But I mean, if you do get that break below that 58.30, I mean, you've pretty much got a $7 drop before you get some more just classic support here. Elliott Wave is a little rough on this. It's mostly just range bounds. But if we do see a break there, we could easily see this double bottom here. And then below that, I mean, it could be rough. That'll probably depend on how this earnings turns out in the future. And now the video is already getting a bit long, so let's go ahead and just quickly talk about SPY. SPY looks very range bound. I mean, I think you're just very classically looking for 420 and 410 as your main indicators of where we're headed next in the short term. Day over day, it's going to be very different. It's going to probably largely depend on what's going on with company earnings. Keep in mind, there's not going to be a lot of Fed speakers this week, so you're going to want to just be keeping an eye on how those earnings turn out for the future movement in the SPY. I also want to take note of on the 30-minute chart, I think is where you're going to see this head and shoulders that seems to be forming as well. That's going to be important. It depends on who you're talking to, but I've seen so many different projections for where this market is headed next. And so right now, I'm just letting price action dictate it to me. I'm simplifying it. And just kind of seeing where this goes. Now for later this year, I feel extremely convicted on what I think is going to occur. Just in the short day-to-day action, it's a lot rougher. And I'll be playing some company earnings this week. But of course, if you want to hear about that, make sure you're in the Discord. And I'll actually make a lot of that content free. I've been trying to make more stuff free actually for members of the Discord. I also want to mention that I did apply to create a subscription process for Twitter. So for those of you that don't like Discord, you don't want to use it, but you do want this information. Maybe you want to see my trades in real time as I make them and some of my theories behind that. I'll be creating a subscription package on Twitter if it gets approved. I don't know why it wouldn't, but just an if. Next week, I'm going to be doing a video about the esports industry. Draw some pretty solid parallels between that and the stock market and what's been going on with growth and crypto and how a lot of the issues in the economy right now are directly represented in esports in a very easy to understand way. So I think it's going to be a great featured video that I want to do next week. Well, of course, always do the weekly report, but I'm going to be trying to keep up this two larger videos, long form videos a week and the short content as well. So hope you enjoyed. I'll see you then.